What is good, folks? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review Kelly Clarkson's second album. This album came out in 2004 and it's called Breakaway. Now, basically, the concept about it is Kelly Clarkson won American Idol back in 2002, or the early years, one of the first seasons of American Idol, and she put out an album called Thankful in 2003, and then she dropped her follow up kind of as like a, a way of countering folks who were saying that she was just an American Idol star and she wasn't going to amount to anything, but she did. And that's kind of the concept. This is a 6 times platinum album. Wound up having 5 singles, 4 top 10 singles, and then a fifth single that hit top 12 on the Billboard 100. So this is a pretty large success. Definitely did extremely well. Has a lot of earworm type songs in here. A lot of sing ready and kind of signature songs that are some highlights for Kelly Clarkson, and she definitely did a great job on here. And the problem with it is, I mean, really, Kelly Clarkson continued to have hits. Like, she did have like her 2007 album, which did pretty well, and some other albums. I think a couple of songs hit #1 and that type of stuff. But this is kind of one of the most distinct albums from her. This is the one that I think most folks think of when they think of most of her career, unless you happen to really follow her a lot more. But this is like one of the ones that kind of is like, when you think of Eminem, you think of like the Marshall Mathers LP, and you think of 50 Cent, you think of like Get Rich or Die Trying and that type of stuff. But when you think of Kelly Clarkson, this is probably one of the albums that comes to mind is Breakaway. Now, I don't know if it's her best. I am eventually going to start reviewing more of Kelly Clarkson, but this is a pretty solid album and has a lot of hits on here that are pretty great. That's kind of the situation. And something I like that Wikipedia said about this album was this album was kind of responsible. This is one of the albums responsible for landscaping the core sound of mainstream pop music into like an up-tempo, dance-oriented sound in the 2000s. So that basically means that it kind of helped shear and kind of craft kind of getting things in a more dance and up-tempo kind of way in that type sense. And that's pretty good, just because I look after it, and I would definitely have to say like pop music at the time was just kind of, you would get the singles like when you think of like Alanis Morissette, and you think of like folks, like Jessica Simpson and those type folks that were around that time. I mean, pop was just kind of 1 or 2 singles, but Kelly Clarkson went the full brig and got like 5 of them, and they're all pretty high charting, and it just has a nice stylish vibe towards it that's definitely pretty good. I'm gonna have to review more pop from around this time, but just to kind of say some of that stuff. And yeah, like the situation about this project is, it's kind, I don't know if I said this already, but it's kind of this Kelly kind of reminds me of an amalgamation of like Avril Lavigne and like Amy Lee from Evanescence. She definitely gives off that kind of vibe where there's folks who worked with Evanescence that work with Kelly Clarkson this time, and there are some similarities between Evanescence, but Kelly kind of brings it to like more of like a pop type sound and gives it a lot more of an emotional kind of beacon for it, and it's a lot more like, it loses some of the hauntingness. I mean, it does have like a haunting tinge towards it, but it's not nearly as haunting as the stuff that Evanescence did on Fallen. And she just kind of has like a very similar approach and kind of candor that Avril Lavigne had on her Let Go album and her 2004 album. I forget what that one's called, but it's just, that's kind of the pitch towards it, where Kelly is brighter than Avril Lavigne. She definitely, by brighter I mean she's more kind of popish and a lot more smiley than Avril Lavigne kind of is. But that's kind of the concept. That's what you get, is just, if Avril Lavigne is like charcoal, like Kelly Clarkson is like slate, something like that. I just would have to say that's kind of the concept, where you're still getting that same kind of moody pitch here, but it just kind of is toned down a bit and is more blue collar and pop oriented. That's pretty dope to kind of get that. So there's 5 singles on this project, and the first one is Since You've Been Gone, and this is a pretty karaoke ready song. Like, the thing about this album is it has some karaoke songs on here, kind of stepping out in a mild sense. It's kind of something where you're in the car getting ready to go out for the night, and it kind of gives you goosebumps as far as stepping out and getting ready to have a good time and that type thing. I feel like there's a couple of singles off the 5 that are on here that kind of give that sort of pitch, and it has like that sort of notation about it as far as trying to do that. Definitely kind of got those karaoke. It's sing-songy, it's chorus ready. It definitely has like like pretty like it hit. I want to say it hit number 2. It charted extremely high. This is probably one of Kelly Clarkson's most popular songs. It has a lot of good things about it. Definitely reminds me of like a weekend kind of getting ready to go out and have yourself a good time type feel about it. An easily kind of great lead single and that type stuff. And Behind These Hazel Eyes is the second single, and this one kind of reminds me of like a late summer, late August, September kind of feel towards it, where it just kind of has that hazy type feel and is more of like a house party, just sitting around the house and the block type feel of it. Got more of like a backyard barbecue, just chillaxing in the hazy mid late summer kind of vibes. But it's not really like a early summer hot as Hades type feel, but definitely just a breezy kind of bonnet hat type feel, that I would say. Bonnets for women, I mean, but nice kind of breezy kind of vibe towards it. Definitely like the song. Behind These Hazel Eyes has another great chorus on there. A lot of kinetic vibes on here that just work out extremely well. Because of You is the third single, and this one basically, these are the emotional ones, the kind of more Evanescence type sounding ones that I was talking about from before, that kind of has like that same similar type pitch towards it. And yeah, like these are the type ones that have the similar pitch to Evanescence, but just kind of in a more pop oriented type candor about it. And I wasn't really enjoying this one. I'm just gonna have to say I didn't quite enjoy like Because of You. Just I didn't quite enjoy Because of You. I mean, some of these just I feel like they were a lot hammier than I would have liked. Not so much ham. I mean, the emotion that Kelly Clarkson put behind these songs is good, of course, and the choruses are ready to go and pretty recitable. These are all top 10 songs. Because of You and Breakaway are both really chart heavy, but the problem, I was not connecting with the energy behind them. I feel like I would connect more with Since You've Been Gone and Walk Away, and kind of Behind These Hazel Eyes more so than the other two. But it's good to have these kind of remind me of vibes that you would get from like Stevie Wonder and like Elton John and some of those type folks that kind of have those more just overcast kind of bravado filled, hard on your sleeve type songs. I would definitely have to say, so it's pretty good to kind of get that. But Walk Away is another one that kind of has like a mild sense of like karaoke type feels towards it. This is more of like being in a vehicle and kind of stepping out more and getting ready to go out for the night and enjoy like a night of karaoke and like a few beers, something like that. Just having a good time. Mild shindigs. It's not to say mild like Kelly Clarkson doesn't step out, but it's not quite as concerned with like the crunchy, total carnage, carnivorous type nights that you would expect. I mean, it's really just kind of assuming almost possibly that you have a job and you've got to be there the next day. It's enough to kind of have yourself a good time and have enough of a good time, but not to the extreme. It's kind of the stuff that if you watch The Office every day back when it was on and that type of stuff, where it just kind of has like a lifestyle similar to like The Office, very blue collar friendly and that type of stuff, but it's not like it has to be. I mean, don't think when I'm saying this I'm just trying to pigeonhole it into like strictly for blue collar folks. It just kind of reminds me, I mean, it just kind of comes off as more of like a more blue collar and kind of more relaxed type feel. Just, going out, but not quite to the extreme of having like an extravagant. But I do feel like these are pretty potent boilers for stepping out in like a karaoke sense. I mean, if you're really going crazy at karaoke, these are some great songs for doing that kind of vibe. And Kelly Clarkson can actually, she does have some octaves on these songs that kind of have like some nice singing moments, so you can have a pretty stellar time with some of these. But obviously, like the more way I'm trying to say this is that there are crazier songs, but it does have like a nice pitch of crazy just in like a mild context to that. So it's kind of the concept behind it. But then Breakaway is kind of the fifth single, and this one has another emotional kind of real strong. This one has a stronger emotional kind of bloodletting towards it. Definitely reminds me of something this definitely reminds me of something Avril Lavigne would do and like Amy Lee would do, but I would definitely have to say that this one's a lot more just like the emotions on the song are pretty strong, and that's kind of why I wasn't quite vibing with it as much. I do like the vibes of like Since You've Been Gone and Walk Away, but this is kind of a lot stronger and a lot more passionate in terms of just like something. It just kind of feels like something like a death in the family or something of like some sort of tragedy that kind of happened, or it just has a lot more of like stronger than just, I mean, these songs are kind of necessary, but it's kind of a stronger song, I would have to say. So I didn't enjoy that one or Because of You, but it is there. And it does kind of remind, like, apparently this is a song that Avril Lavigne did, but she gave it to Kelly Clarkson. So it would have fit Avril Lavigne. I could have seen that in there, but it is a stronger song than the context of most of the singles on this project. It's interesting to kind of get that. So the songs I recommend to you out of 11, because one of which is Beautiful Disaster, and that's a live song. So there's 11 songs on here, and I'll go ahead and tell you the 5 songs out of 11 I recommend. So they would be Since You've Been Gone, Behind These Hazel Eyes, Gone, Walk Away, and I Hate Myself for Loving You. So the 2 songs I haven't talked about besides the singles are Gone and I Hate Myself for Loving You, which have the same kind of karaoke, and Gone and I Hate Myself for Loving You have the same kind of karaoke bar and mild stepping out type feel. Definitely kind of see them as like a vibe of like a weekend out, and kind of like a sense maybe you have work the next day, maybe you don't, that type thing. But this is kind of a relaxed sense where you're going to get turned up to maybe like 5 or 6 instead of 9 or 10 for the night, that type feel. I kind of like the context behind it, and but there's a number of songs on here that kind of do have more of like a strong emotional letting out of this kind of coping, and it's kind of a coping project in some ways. I do feel like songs like Where Is Your Heart and Addicted, and like Where Is Your Heart and Addicted, Because of You, and Breakaway all kind of have like a lot more of like a different kind of strong and this kind of heart-wrenching kind of pace towards them that's different from the project, where this album is a little bit stronger than just like a night out, and it kind of has more to offer in that sense, but it kind of loses some of the impact just because I would have to say my complaints are more personal this time around, because I do feel like the serious songs and the more kind of overcast songs are important to kind of have on an album for folks that it may not quite be as much of party animals and weekend animals as some folks. But that's kind of the concept where you have to get some of these. But you do understand that Kelly Clarkson did kind of have like the concept of appealing to a lot more crowds this time. That's kind of thing. It's more of a balanced album. That's just kind of, I don't want to knock this album entirely for just doing songs that kind of appeal to more, but it does have some of these moments that kind of lose at least my tempo as to how I would have wanted it. And that's kind of the thing. But like the singles do that, and then there's a couple like the song Hear Me was really trying to give off Evanescence vibes. I almost gave that as an almost song, but I didn't quite vibe with it enough. The chorus wasn't quite up to par. Yeah, that about takes care of it for me to talk about 5 songs I liked, 5 songs I didn't like, and then there's one other song, You Found Me, which I didn't quite enjoy the pace of that one. So, yeah, so that's basically the concept. So me liking 5 songs out of 11, I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like a 4.75 out of 10. Like it is pretty strong. Like the singles are definitely great, and there are some great vibes for just like a stepping out in that kind of sense. That's not, just depending upon the crowd you rock with. If you have some blue collar friends, or if you have like just a different assortment where you're not trying to pound shots of Jack Daniels and have like a bunch of smoke sessions of Swisher Sweets and that type of stuff. You're just looking for a different type of stepping out, and you just want to go to a karaoke bar. You just want to go to a karaoke bar instead of like a nightclub or a rave or something like that, where you want to go out, but just kind of more in a lighter sense. It's just kind of a light, more relaxed, kind of more calmer and calmer and lambent kind of energy this more time around. I just would have to say that's kind of the concept here. Kind of more like Pink is a little bit crazier than Kelly Clarkson, but just kind of more in that sense. More like Pink, more like Avril Lavigne, more like Kelly Clarkson, where they step out and they still have a good time, but it's just toned down a few notches compared to some of the stuff you see me review in recent times. That's kind of the concept, but it's just kind of, I mean, you can give this album a higher score. I would definitely say it's possible to like this album more if the songs that are more kind of emotional and have more meaning to them, have more, that are not weekend songs, kind of have more connection with you. But I can't see very many options or many I can't see very many times where I would listen to Breakaway or Because of You, and both of those are pretty strong singles, but the energy behind them just has like a lot more of like a heart-wrenching kind of attitude that I would not be looking towards very commonly. And that just slashes the singles, and then there's other songs like that, but I'm glad that there's at least a couple other songs like Gone and I Hate Myself for Losing You that kind of keep the vibes of Since You've Been Gone and Walk Away, because Kelly Clarkson has a pretty strong vibe. I mean, she could definitely wind up being a lot crazier of a party animal if she wanted to. I can definitely see her just doing a whole karaoke themed album, having a bunch of songs like that, and just completely having the whole karaoke bar throwing their hats in the air and that type of stuff would be pretty nuts. But that's just kind of the concept. So 4.75 out of 10. I'll go ahead and give the social score like a 6. I kind of feel like it does have the hits in here, but it just is kind of an amalgamation of a variety of energies on here. There are 3 out of 5 of them have like a more social and weekend kind of vibe, but there are the other 2 singles that kind of don't. And it's just kind of an amalgamation. It's halfway blue collar, halfway not. And that's kind of the situation. You got your Monday songs, you got your Friday songs. That's kind of the pitch towards it. It just depends upon how much you connect with it and how many songs you need. But that's kind of the concept. There are some stepping out ones. There's about half the album kind of does it, but the quality behind it is if you're not connecting with the more kind of thematic type songs, and that's the more by the book and straight lace kind of songs, and that's what you have to offer. So that's basically kind of the concept about it. So in terms of the future, Kelly Clarkson, I want to say, dropped an album in 2021. I have not paid too much attention to Kelly Clarkson since like 2009 or 2011 or 2013. But I know maybe she dropped like a Christmas album and then she dropped like an album in 2011. She has done some stuff, but like she hasn't really charted like that since like 2009, 2010. So I want to see some more of these and see what other hits she has to offer. I'm probably going to review her 2007 album, stuff like that, some of those. But this is definitely, it's good, solid stuff here. It's just kind of the concept that it is straight lace and blue collar in a lot of ways.